apartment was bathed in afternoon sunlight, but no light was warm enough to soften the tension in the air. On the table sat two steaming cappuccinos, one of them slightly nudged by a pair of fingers with glossy, nude-colored nails. "This is coffee?" Her voice cut through, cold as ice. "Ella, you live in the heart of San Francisco, working as some kind of director at a big company, and you can't even afford decent coffee?" I clenched my fingers slightly, keeping the smile in place. Same script, different day. If I brought home a bottle of Italian wine, she'd say I was wasteful. If I just offered bottled water, she'd call me emotionally frigid. "Mom," I took a breath and pulled the velvet lapel of my coat back over my shoulder. "I have something for you." She raised an eyebrow, setting her coffee down on the mahogany table like it had germs. I reached into my pocket and pulled out two glossy plane tickets, catching the last light of the day. "Your birthday's coming up, and I thought you deserved something special." She snatched the tickets as if they might vanish if I changed my mind. "Venice?" Her eyes widened, the first flicker of something resembling awe all day. "First class." I nodded, offering a gentle smile. "We're staying at the Hotel Daniele, right by the Grand Canal. You used to talk about watching the sunset over the water, remember? When I was little, you'd point at those travel magazines and say, 'One day.'" She frowned, and then, just like always, any trace of softness evaporated. "One day? That was before your father ran off with that curly-haired intern," she scoffed. "After that, I had to work 2 jobs just to keep you fed." I said nothing. Not because I didn't have a rebuttal, but because I'd heard the story so many times it played in my head like a broken recording. "Anyway," I kept my tone steady, "we could start fresh. 2 weeks in Venice. Just you and me." She placed the tickets back on the table, her gaze measured. "This must have cost a fortune. How did you afford it?" "I planned 6 months ago, cut out unnecessary expenses. I wanted you to have an experience worth remembering." She stood, adjusting her silk scarf. "Then I'll need to prepare properly. I'm not stepping into a 5-star hotel with a beat-up suitcase and old Macy's dresses." I'd anticipated that. So when I opened my wallet and handed her a gift card from a luxury boutique in Union Square, she nearly dropped her handbag. "Samantha and Co.? That place sells evening gowns that cost more than what junior lawyers make in a month." "Ella, you—" For the first time in years, she had no immediate comeback. "I want you to feel special," I said softly. "I want you to come with me. No stress, no worrying." She gripped the card like it was treasure. Then, out of nowhere, she leaned in for a quick hug. So fast, it didn't register until it was over. My daughter does know how to surprise me after all. I smiled, even as something inside tightened. That kind of sweetness always came with a hook, like affection and manipulation were woven into the same thread. After she left, my hands still trembled as I texted Sasha. "My best friend and now a personal risk consultant. She said yes. Venice is happening. Lunch tomorrow?" Her reply was instant. "Don't forget Plan B. Trust is just another kind of leash sometimes." I glanced around the quiet apartment, picked up her untouched coffee. It was ice cold. The bitterness clung to my tongue. 1 week until the flight. 7 days to prepare for the best-case scenario or the worst disaster I'd ever walked into. The next morning, I arrived at Clover and Pine 10 minutes early. Sasha was already there, phone face down, steam rising from her oolong tea. She looked up without greeting, asking only, "Any word from your mom?" I shook my head quietly as I sat down. Not a single text or call, but you know as well as I do, silence is never a good sign. Sasha frowned, pulling a thick envelope from her bag. I opened it. Copies of my passport, digital boarding passes, emergency authorization documents, and a backup credit card under her name with a $500 daily limit. "This," she said, "is in case everything explodes. Your main account has a second-layer security lock. Every transaction needs OTP approval. And this," she handed me a flash drive, Is the full collection of evidence I gathered on her, yes, including 2012. My throat tightened, not because of the documents, but because those files ripped open wounds I'd buried. My college fund had disappeared a week after I got a scholarship from UCLA. She claimed it was a bank mistake. 3 years later, I learned she used it to invest in Reno real estate, under someone else's name, using papers I had unknowingly signed as a minor. Ella, Sasha said gently, you're not that 18-year-old anymore. You're allowed to prepare. You're allowed to protect yourself. I didn't answer, just clutched the USB like it was a grenade waiting for a trigger. 2 days later, I called Oliver, a college friend now managing the Rialto Hotel in Venice. After I explained, he didn't ask many questions. Send her name, photo, behavioral details. I'll inform security. If needed, I'll assign you a separate room with solo access. Her reservation will remain, but every transaction will be held for your approval. Within half an hour, I emailed over everything. ID scans, her old passport number, even a clip from my aunt's wedding. My mother sobbing during the ceremony. Then, borrowing the diamond ring as a keepsake, never to return it. Somehow she always knew how to make people feel guilty for asking back what was theirs. That night, while I was packing, my phone lit up. An anonymous text. A good daughter doesn't keep secrets. I've always been watching you. I slammed the suitcase shut, locked it tight, and turned on my phone's recorder. I had no idea how much she knew, but I had a clear sense. Everything was moving forward, towards something she'd never see coming. The next morning, I stopped by the bank to open a secondary account at a separate Venice branch, under a proxy name supported by my company. The account was designated for legally supervised spending during the trip. When asked for a reason, I simply said, protecting assets from internal risk. Near noon, I met Sasha again at her law office in the Embarcadero. She placed a financial hold agreement in front of me. Any transaction over $300 from my main card would be automatically blocked, unless confirmed by legal counsel. I signed it. I've never planned a vacation that felt like prepping for a Black Ops mission, I said softly. Sasha shrugged. The only difference is, most missions don't have your mother as the top threat. As I stepped out of her office, the bay breeze had already turned chilly. I stood by the waterfront, staring at the rippling water, and suddenly recalled a conversation from 12 years ago, when I discovered my mom had opened 4 credit cards under my name. She just laughed. Shameless. Aren't we family? You live, I live. I need it, you help. It's not stealing. I had no words then. But now, I had Sasha. I had Oliver. I had files and fail-safes stacked around me like armor. The question was no longer, would she do something? But rather, when she did, would I be ready? That afternoon when I got home, there was a package in the mailbox. No return address, just a beige envelope with embossed words, "Trust your mother." I opened it. Inside was an old photo. Me in a white dress on graduation day, standing on the school lawn smiling brightly. She was beside me, hand on my shoulder. Her face was radiant, like everything was real. I suddenly couldn't breathe. Maybe some part of her once wanted to do right? I pressed the photo into a book, tucked it in the suitcase, then double-checked my list. Tickets, secondary passport, USB, bank documents, backup phone, emergency contact names. Everything was in place, except maybe my heart. I arrived at SFO International 3 hours before departure. At the Alitalia first-class check-in counter, Mom still hadn't shown. I scanned the terminal, every seat row, coffee kiosk, duty-free aisle, but saw no familiar figure. 3 calls went straight to voicemail. My text, "Mom, I'm here, where are you?" sat unanswered on the screen. An hour passed, then 2. An airline agent came over informing me the gate would close in 10 minutes. I was about to turn and search again when a uniformed man pointed at my boarding pass and said gently, "This flight can't wait any longer, ma'am." As I stepped through the jet bridge, dread crawled up my spine like soap bubbles under skin. Mom wasn't someone who forgot the time. She also wasn't the type to miss a chance to flaunt where she was, what she wore, what she ate. A trip to Venice in a top-tier hotel was a stage made for her. I settled into seat 2A, hands cold, chest heavy. Seat 2B next to me remained empty. The plane left the runway at 6:05. I texted again. Mom, I'm on the plane. If you're somewhere in the airport, please talk to a staff member. They'll help you. No response. The 10-hour flight felt endless. I didn't sleep a minute. When we landed at Marco Polo Airport, Venice was gray with a light drizzle. I rolled my suitcase past customs, too drained to tell if the overhead speaker was in Italian or English. As I turned into baggage claim, I froze. There she was, in a pearl-colored silk dress, oversized sunglasses, pulling her Louis Vuitton suitcase across the carpet, chatting casually with a taxi driver at the gate. "Mom!" I called out, my voice weak against the noise. She turned. A strange moment, no shock, no guilt, just triumph. Then she turned away. I ran after her, my carry-on thudding against my legs. Near the passport checkpoint, I reached into my bag. Empty. I stopped cold. The travel wallet was gone. Passport, credit cards, cash, Sasha's backup bank card. Everything gone. My hand shook. I dumped my bag onto a bench in the waiting area. Lipstick, gum, glasses, notebook, and a faded college photo I kept for luck. No wallet. I looked up just in time to see her taxi glide past. Through the rear window, I saw her lean back, fixing her hair. Still. Cold. My phone buzzed in my hand. A new number, the text said. Venice is my dream. Not ours, thanks for paying for it, love, Mom. A customs officer approached. Are you all right? I looked up at him, unable to speak. My grip tightened around the phone, pain and rage tangling like a storm. I sat down, heart pounding, Sasha's warnings replaying in my mind. There's always a copy. Backup USB is in the bottom of your carry-on. Bank account can be unlocked with facial ID. And remember, if it all goes wrong, call Oliver immediately. I flipped my suitcase, unzipped the hidden lining. The USB was still there. The backup phone, tucked in my spare sneakers, intact. I texted Sasha. She got here first, took my wallet, stole my passport. I'm at the airport, stuck before passport control. 1 minute later, the spare phone vibrated. Don't panic. Take the USB to the consular help desk. Oliver's sending someone to get you. I stood, pulled my coat tight and looked toward the window, where rain tapped softly against the glass roof. If she thought I'd crumble here, she forgot who rose from the ashes she left behind. I walked out of arrivals with purpose, phone glowing in my palm, fingers wrapped around the copy of the graduation photo she once gave me. The eyes in that photo once looked at me with pride, or at least I once believed they did. Now I knew clearly she hadn't come to Venice to make amends, she came to take, but she wouldn't be the only one playing both sides. I stepped out of the consular assistance station with a temporary passport and a thick envelope of documents. The backup phone buzzed text from Oliver. Your mother has checked in at the Rialto, requested an upgrade to the presidential suite, tried to charge it to your card. We declined, but allowed temporary stay to avoid a scene. Cameras have begun recording as per your request. I replied, lock the room key, disable all payment privileges, block any additional services. Hold position, tonight it ends. Near the taxi stand, a soft female voice came from behind me. Headed to the Rialto? I turned. A redhead holding a hardcover book, calm eyes tinged with curiosity. I overheard your story in the waiting room. If you need backup, I'm game. Her name was Claire, law student, solo traveler. Straightforward, clear-minded, no scent of pity. We shared a taxi to the hotel. Under Venice's silvery gray skies, the water gently slapped the hull, whispering untold stories. At the Rialto lobby, Oliver was waiting. Gray suit, eyes filled with layered meanings. Ella, we've arranged the executive suite for you just below the presidential. The hallway is access code, security knows your face, all of her movements have been logged. I nodded. She used my name at check-in? Worse, he smirked. She'd tried using a pity voice to request extended credit limit because her daughter had an accident back in San Francisco. Claire gave a soft whistle. Creative mother you've got. I entered my room and opened the suitcase, pulling out the black dress Sasha had sent earlier. V-cut neckline, satin, elegant and formidable. The mirror reflected a woman who was no longer prey. Oliver texted. She's reserved a table at Ultravino, the hotel restaurant, center dining area, spotlight seat. Starts at 8 p.m. What time should we make your entrance? I replied, 8:15, right when the main course lands. Claire watched me like someone observing a dancer about to take the stage. You sure? I adjusted the dress strap. Never been surer. At exactly 8:15, I stepped into the restaurant. The glass chandeliers cast a soft, flesh-toned glow. The room was so quiet you could hear forks tap against porcelain. Mom sat at a round table for 6, flanked by 3 well-dressed couples. She wore a white Zimmermann dress, one I'd once reserved for a fundraiser, hugging her frame. A string of pearls shimmered at her neck, and earrings suspiciously new sparkled under the light. She looked up. A flicker of shock cut through her eyes like a blade. Then, instantly, she replaced it with a gentle smile. Sweet Ella, you're here already? I thought you were at the hospital? I pulled out the chair across from her. I'm fine, but it seems you've been using my condition to host dinner? The table stiffened. A man blinked, glancing around. She's your mother? I pulled my ID card from my wallet, set it on the table. Legal owner of the credit card she's been using all day. A woman murmured, Oh my God. Mom switched tones instantly. What are you doing? This isn't the time for this talk. We should speak in private. No need. These people deserve to know who's footing the bill for their meal. Oliver approached the table. Mrs. Monroe, the system has logged 3 more failed payment attempts from the presidential suite. We've temporarily locked all services tied to that account. She blinked. That must be a mistake. My card worked fine shopping earlier. I held up my phone and played the video. Her arguing with the Gucci store clerk when her payment failed. A direct hit. Her expression shattered. You can't do this to me, not in front of strangers. I reached into my bag and placed a small wallet on the table, identical to the one she had taken from me. I don't need to do anything to you. You've already done it all. She opened it. Inside were clipped photos, fake credit cards, and a handwritten note in ink. Everything you ever taught me, I learned well. Her eyes blurred a bit, or maybe it was just the red wine catching the light? A beat of silence. Then whispers began drifting in from nearby tables. Oliver spoke calmly. We've alerted the consular rep and fraud investigation. They're on their way. She shot up, knocking her chair back. You don't understand. Everything I did was for her. No, I said. You did it for yourself. And now, I live for me. Claire, seated in the corner, lifted her wine glass toward me like a quiet signal. Mom stood in the middle of the restaurant, an actress caught mid-performance. Her lips were tight, eyes darting, searching for a crack to escape the rising attention of the guests. The white Zimmermann dress lost its elegance as she began shouting. Ella, what are you doing? You want to ruin everything? In front of all these people? I held her gaze, calm. I don't need to ruin anything. You already did. I'm just turning on the light. Oliver leaned closer and whispered, Front desk has locked the keycard access to room 906. Her luggage will be taken to the side exit within 10 minutes. Security is standing by. I nodded. Keep the footage of her check-in and the forged signature. Send it straight to the fraud team. She panted, circling the table, reaching for her purse. But I blocked her with a small brown item from my coat, the real travel wallet she had swapped back at the airport. Looking for this? She froze. Guests nearby whispered. A woman in a purple dress leaned toward her friend. "Isn't she the woman who yelled at the hotel staff at reception yesterday?" I placed the wallet on the table, opened it. Bank card, real passport, birth certificate. All intact. Then, I played the audio recording, my mother's voice, loud and clear, during a previous phone call, arguing with the bank clerk who wouldn't let her withdraw funds from the account in my name. "My daughter has mental issues. She's forgetful. I'm her legal representative. I need access." The recording stopped. The air thickened. My mother clenched her jaw slightly. "I just wanted to make sure you wouldn't ruin yourself. I did everything for you." I let out a bitter laugh. "For me? You emptied my college fund, sold grandma's necklace, and racked up debt on a credit card in my name before I was even old enough to have one." She turned to the crowd, voice quivering. "You don't understand. Being a mother isn't easy. I raised her alone, after her father left." Oliver raised his hand. Two security guards stepped forward, standing on either side of her like doors slowly closing. "We've arranged a standard room at the Adriana Inn, nearby. Mrs. Monroe will be escorted within 5 minutes." She turned back to me. "Ella, you can't be this cruel to your own mother." I stepped closer. Close enough for her to hear, but far enough not to touch the fracture in her eyes. "You're not being removed because you're my mother. You're being removed because you're a fraud. There's a difference." She opened her mouth to say something, but then froze, maybe realizing no one would defend her. The man who had dined with her stood silently, pulled out his wallet to pay. The woman beside him turned her face away when my mother's eyes reached hers. A hotel clerk brought over her purse, a pair of leather gloves, and an envelope marked, "Outstanding charges, room 906. Oliver signed the report, then turned to me. "Would you like to walk her out?" I glanced at Claire, still watching from across the room. She gave a small nod. "No advice needed." "No, we have a dinner to finish." I sat back down and poured another glass of wine. My mother was led out through the side exit, her elegant outfit now only making her seem more out of place against the restaurant's refined backdrop. Her heels echoed sharply, then faded behind a heavy wooden door. Claire came over and pulled out the chair beside me. "That scene's gonna go viral soon, just from how many people were secretly recording." I raised my glass, lips brushing the rim. "Even better, let my mother finally get what she's always demanded, center stage." Under the soft gold lights, I saw my reflection in the glass. No more confusion, no trace of fear. Just clarity, and a confrontation swelling like a wave waiting to crash. Strings began to play. An overture to the grand evening gala in the Rialto's main ballroom. The crystal lights sparkled overhead, everything glistening with Venice's nighttime glamour. Guests were nearly all present. Local politicians, art patrons, celebrities from both American and Italian real estate circles. Everyone impeccably dressed, holding glasses of white wine, chatting like nothing could disturb the ceremony of the night. Standing behind the small stage, I watched through the velvet curtain. Oliver was speaking with the sound technician. Claire checked her phone, then gave me a subtle nod when a message from Sasha popped up. "Cameras are ready, internal stream connected, spotlight hits the center floor at 8:15, move on cue." I adjusted my dress strap and stepped onto the stage. Just as the music dimmed, the large screens around the ballroom lit up all at once, switching from the hotel's logo to a title, "Truth Under Light." The footage began. Scenes from the Altrovino restaurant. My mother in the center yelling before being escorted out by hotel staff. Then a clip from the front desk where she tried to pay with an invalid card and threw her purse when denied. Each video was timestamped, cleanly framed with boosted audio. Every word rang through the room as if it were happening live. Conversations halted. Glasses stopped midair. I picked up the mic. "Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to introduce the central figure in these recordings, Mrs. Clarissa Monroe, who also happens to be my biological mother. The same woman who was moved to another hotel room after using unauthorized credit cards, forging signatures, and impersonating others for personal gain." A hush rippled through the crowd. I signaled Oliver. The next clips played. Her at a gallery in Florence last year, coaxing a young artist into a commission-based investment. Then a ceremony in San Diego, where a charity lost nearly $250,000 after trusting the reputation she crafted for herself. An older woman stood up from the left row. I'm Emily Townsend, former director of the Nurture Hope Foundation. The woman in that video promised to use fundraising proceeds for scholarships for children with cancer. Instead, we discovered she transferred nearly all of it to a shell company in Panama. The room fell silent, like the air had been vacuumed out. A silver-haired man stepped forward. My name is Marcus Bell. Clarissa once worked at my financial firm in Chicago. She posed as a fundraising consultant, ran seminars to draw investments, then vanished with close to $800,000. Back then, she went by a different name, Cassandra Rhodes. I scanned the room, faces shifting from curious to outraged. Next, the Sullivan couple, whom I had only known through prior emails, stepped onto the platform. Our son Leo lost his entire inheritance after Ms. Clarissa convinced him to invest in a tech firm where she claimed to be an advisor. The company never existed. It was a disguised pyramid scheme. We've been searching for her for almost 2 years. I turned back toward the screen. The final clip played. My mother signing for a Valentino dress at the hotel reception. The clerk asked 3 times for confirmation of the name. She insisted it was correct. The receipt, shown in high resolution, left no doubt. Guests began whispering among themselves. Many had pulled out their phones, recording the screen. A hashtag started trending online, Clarissa Unmasked. A sharp sound rang out from the ballroom entrance, heels striking marble. My mother appeared in a deep red dress, bold lipstick, and unblinking eyes. Enough! You're acting like I'm some war criminal. No, I replied. You're just a career con artist. But actions have consequences. Tonight's event is being live-streamed, and there are representatives from the U.S. Embassy and the International Investigations Unit in this very room. A man near the stage raised his hand. EU Internal Affairs. We've been tracking Mrs. Monroe since the Paris fraud case 4 months ago. My mother turned to retreat, but 2 security guards blocked her path. She looked around, hoping someone would step in. No one did. I spoke into the mic. Clarissa Monroe, you once believed you'd never be caught, but you forgot. The internet has no short-term memory, and justice doesn't run on family calendars. Scattered clapping began, then swelled. She was escorted out as the screens returned to the hotel logo. Claire leaned toward me and whispered, "She looks so much smaller under the lights." I answered, "That's because she's always lived in the dark. There's nowhere left to hide." The criminal courthouse in Venice was surrounded by moss-covered stone walls, like a forgotten Roman chapel. But today it wasn't quiet. International press waited outside, cameras focused on a woman being escorted from a prison van. Clarissa Monroe, in a gray inmate uniform, hands cuffed at her waist, head bowed low. I sat in the witness box, palms cold as the clerk called my name. "Ella Monroe, please take the stand." The room fell silent as I rose. Each step forward felt like turning another old page. The only sound was the hum of the recording equipment. The prosecutor nodded. "Please state your relationship to the defendant." "She is my biological mother." "Can you describe the personal damages caused by the defendant?" I kept my gaze steady. "When I was 17, she forged my signature to open 3 credit cards. The debt remained on my record until I turned 24. The college fund left by my grandparents, she drained it just weeks after I got a scholarship to UCLA. She said it was a necessary investment in the family's future." I placed copies of bank statements, loan documents, and prior complaints onto the evidence table. This year, when I booked a trip to reconcile, she stole my passport, wallet, and bank cards at the airport. Then flew to Venice ahead of me, used my name to reserve a presidential suite, went on a luxury shopping spree, and attempted to charge everything using unauthorized transactions. I paused, then pulled out my phone and opened a message she had sent me. Bevanese is my dream, not ours. Thanks for paying for it. Love you. A wave of murmurs rolled through the gallery. The judge banged the gavel to restore order. Do you have evidence that the defendant has done similar things to others? I signaled. The court officer cued a video on the projector. Footage from the hotel gala. Witnesses like Emily Townsend, the Sullivan family, and Marcus Bell appeared one after another, giving detailed testimony about investment fraud, charity misappropriation, and international identity theft. As the video ended, a man in the back row stood. Tall, gray-haired, shirt buttoned up to the collar. My father. The prosecutor addressed him. Thomas Raymond, former chief financial officer of Alaris Group. He stepped up to the stand, hand on the Bible, voice low. I'm the defendant's ex-husband. During our divorce, I was forced out of the company I founded because she fabricated documents suggesting I embezzled funds. It turns out she used my identity to transfer money from the investment pool into a private account in the Cayman Islands. Silence fell over the courtroom. I stayed quiet for nearly 20 years, thinking it would protect my daughter from an ugly reality, but I was wrong. That silence only gave her more room to hurt people. My eyes met his. No words were needed. His presence said it all. Clarissa was asked to rise for cross-examination. She lifted her face, eyes glassy but still trying to appear composed. Everything I did was to survive, to not be left behind. Men leave. Society looks down on you. Your daughter turns her back. Do you think a single mother can survive by being kind? The judge didn't respond. He read aloud the full list of charges. Financial fraud, document forgery, asset misappropriation, identity theft, international fraud, 31 charges across 3 countries. Does the defendant have any final statement? Clarissa breathed heavily. I taught my daughter to be strong. I didn't expect she'd use that strength against her own mother. You didn't teach me strength. You taught me control, deceit, and guilt. How to make people feel wrong for not sacrificing themselves for you. As for strength, I learned it by surviving everything you put me through. The judge delivered the verdict. Defendant Clarissa Monroe is sentenced to 20 years in prison with no parole for at least 15 years. She will be extradited to the United States after serving her sentence in Italy, under agreements with all 3 affected nations. The gavel struck the bench like a heavy door slamming shut for good. Clarissa turned to look at me, as if clinging to something left. I didn't look away. For the first time, I wasn't afraid. I wasn't hoping she'd change. I simply stood tall and watched as officers led her past the rows of seats, the clinking of her chains playing the closing tune. 1 month after the trial, I left Venice. Not to escape, but to begin, finally, from a place where everything had been laid bare. On the flight back to San Francisco, I drafted the first proposal for a project called the Restore Project. It would be a place for victims of financial fraud, identity theft, and familial manipulation to receive real support, both legal. Sasha agreed to co-found it without hesitation. She opened the first office in the Mission District, upstairs from an old bookstore. We turned it into an open space, with private counseling corners, a public resource library, and a quiet, anonymous wall, where those not ready to speak out could still leave their stories, as handwritten notes pinned to a wooden board in the center of the room. My father, Timos, volunteered as a legal advisor for the project. He was no longer the man who once bowed his head and blamed himself, but a calm, persistent, forensic auditor who understood the pain of being deceived by those closest to you. He brought back skills that had laid dormant for nearly 20 years, carefully combing through forgotten files, scrutinizing the fine print in contracts victims had signed while underinformed or coerced. In his eyes, there was no such thing as too late to reclaim what's right. Claire, the woman I met at the Venice airport, relocated to California to join the coordination team. She said simply, "I've never seen a scam so thoroughly unraveled. But more than that, I've never seen someone move forward without letting vengeance lead the way. Didn't respond. What I brought back from Europe wasn't victory. It was a reckoning with the limits of trust and of hope. When I received the first letter from prison, I nearly tore it up. But in the end, I opened it and read in silence, under the dim office lights, with only the wall fan humming. Bina, I don't expect forgiveness, but I want you to know, if I could go back, I'd do it differently. Not because I think I was wrong, but because I didn't expect you to push back. You're the only one who ever made me feel afraid. Not because of what you did, but because of the certainty you carried. I used to think emotions were weapons. Now I see they're what kept you from becoming me. Hold on to that fairness, even if I don't understand where it came from. Clarissa. I folded the letter and placed it in an unlabeled, locked drawer, the kind reserved for things that don't need to be kept, but shouldn't yet be destroyed. Not a single line moved me. No tears. No sympathy. Not because I stopped loving her, but because I no longer depended on that love to survive. The project expanded faster than we imagined. Within a year, we opened 2 new branches, one in Austin, another in Seattle. Young attorneys began to volunteer. Some had been defrauded by business partners. Others had lost wedding savings because their mothers emptied joint accounts. They didn't come to share sob stories. They came to prevent more from happening. Each month, we hosted a truth reclamation session, not to assign blame, but to help people stop feeling wrong for choosing a different path. One woman once said, "I used to think forgiveness was the only way to find peace, but now I understand. Peace doesn't come from silence." I often sat quietly in the corner, watching everything run without me needing to intervene. The system was alive, fueled by real stories. It wasn't about fighting someone. It was about making sure the truth didn't. One quiet August afternoon, Claire placed a hand on my shoulder and asked softly, "If she were released early, would you ever consider seeing her again?" I answered without hesitation. No, she chose her road. I'm no longer the place it leads to. Outside the glass door, sunlight spilled onto the wooden message wall, covered in hundreds of handwritten notes layered like the scales of something still growing. Each piece of paper was a step away from some invisible form of control. I stood up, pulled a blank slip, and wrote just 7 words. Kindness does not need anyone's permission. Then I pinned it to the last open space on the wall. No signature. No need for anyone to know who wrote it, because here, it wasn't about who's right. It was about who found the courage to speak. Ella's story is proof of the quiet strength and courage it takes to face wounds inflicted by your own family. Rather than let the past consume her future, she chose to confront it, reveal the reality, and turn pain into healing action. In a world where so many stay silent for fear of judgment, Ella didn't just stand for herself. She carved a path for others to reclaim their voice. The greatest lesson: kindness does not mean surrender. What do you think of Ella's choice? Should she have forgiven her mother? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to follow the channel for more powerful, real-life stories about family and the hidden truths behind closed doors.